Imagine this. You stand in a vast, dimly lit archive. It's not filled with books or scrolls, but with moments, your moments. Each one is perfectly preserved, not as a dusty record, but as a living, breathing diorama. Over there, in a stark, cold light, is the scene of your first profound failure. The air still thick with the sting of disappointment, the echo of harsh words. You can almost feel the phantom ache in your chest, the heat rising to your cheeks as you witness it anew. Further down, bathed in a deceptively warm, sepia glow, is a lost love. Their laughter, a melody that dances just beyond your reach. Their smile, a haunting mixture of joy and a farewell you never truly processed. You can walk among these exhibits, these crystallized fragments of your history. You can even step into them, feel the textures, smell the familiar scents, hear the voices as if they were spoken only yesterday. There's a strange comfort here, isn't there? A sense of completeness, of knowing who you are because you can point to these tangible proofs of your journey. This archive, after all, is the bedrock of your identity. It's the evidence of your resilience, your capacity for joy, your ability to endure. We are, in essence, curated collections of our yesterdays. Society tells us this. Learn from the past, they advise. Don't forget where you came from, they urge. History is our greatest teacher, the wellspring of wisdom. But here lies the unnerving paradox, a subtle tremor beneath the floorboards of this personal museum. As you wander these halls, you begin to notice the doors. Every exit, every potential new wing, is locked. And the key? It seems to be perpetually misplaced, always just out of sight, or perhaps it was never forged at all. You are the curator, the archivist, and the eternal visitor, but are you also the prisoner? What if this sacred act of remembering, this meticulous preservation of what was, has become a form of elaborate self-confinement? What if the very experiences that shaped you are now the ones that rigidly define the limits of who you can become? Consider the weight you carry, not the physical burden of a long day, but that invisible, yet crushing heft of accumulated moments. It's the phantom limb of a past relationship, still aching for a touch that will never come. It's the hollow echo of an opportunity not taken, now a silent what-if that whispers in the quiet hours of the night. It's the outdated script of a younger self, still dictating your reactions, your fears, your aspirations, long after the curtain has fallen on that particular act of your life. You believe you are moving forward, striding confidently into the future. But how much of your energy is consumed by this constant, subtle tug-of-war with ghosts? How much of your gaze is fixed on the rearview mirror, scrutinizing the receding landscape, while the road ahead remains blurred and unattended? Is it possible that the past, this entity we revere as a teacher, can also be a tyrant? A subtle despot that dictates the emotional climate of your present, that filters your perceptions, that subtly sabotages your attempts to author a new chapter? What if the comfort of the familiar, even a familiar pain, becomes a more potent force than the allure of the unknown, the potential for a different way of being? Could it be that the stories you tell yourself about who you are, stories meticulously crafted from the raw material of your archive, have become so ingrained that they preemptively dismiss any evidence to the contrary? If you were to truly inventory the contents of your inner world, how many of these preserved moments are sources of genuine strength, and how many are chains gilded perhaps with nostalgia or the grim satisfaction of survived ordeals, but chains nonetheless? How much of your present emotional landscape is a direct, unexamined inheritance from past grievances, past heartbreaks, past limitations that you've accepted as immutable truths? The promise of freedom, of authentic presence, beckons. Yet to even glimpse it, we must confront the uncomfortable possibility that the most formidable barriers to our liberation are not external circumstances, but the invisible architecture of yesterday we so diligently maintain within. This internal archive, with its living dioramas of bygone days, what if its foundations are deeper, more complex, and its grip more insidious than we dare to comprehend? What if the chains we feel are not forged of actual events, but of something else entirely, something hidden within the very fabric of our understanding of ourselves and the relentless passage of time? The true nature of this internal prison and the unseen forces that meticulously maintain its walls demand a closer, more unsettling examination, a journey into the very heart of how we become tethered. That internal archive, your personal museum of moments, its foundations run deeper than you might imagine, its unseen forces more intricately woven into the fabric of your being than you've perhaps ever dared to confront. The locks on those doors, the ones barring you from new wings of experience, aren't forged from the mere steel of past events themselves. No, the true chains are far more subtle, more insidious. They are the products of your own mind, the echoes of ancient human dilemmas, and the subtle conditioning of the world around you. This isn't merely about misremembering. It's about the very architecture of how you remember, and why that architecture so often becomes a prison. At the heart of this entanglement lies the deceptive nature of memory itself. You believe your recollections are faithful recordings, like pristine film reels stored in the vaults of your mind. But psychologists like Elizabeth Loftus have shown us the unsettling truth. Memory is not a static library, but a dynamic, reconstructive process. Each time you recall an event, you are not merely replaying it. You are, in a sense, remaking it, subtly coloring it with your present emotions, beliefs, and even later experiences. Daniel Schachter speaks of the 7 sins of memory, frailties like transience, bias, and misattribution, which ensure that your past is an ever-shifting narrative, not a fixed monument. From these imperfect, often biased fragments, you construct the story of you. What narrative psychologists like Dan McAdams call your narrative identity. This story, this ongoing autobiography you whisper to yourself, is essential. It gives you coherence, a sense of self across time. But what if the editor, you, is unknowingly selecting only the scenes that reinforce an outdated script, a tragic flaw, or a limiting belief? What if the protagonist of your own story is forever typecast by specters of the past? The psychological roots of this tethering are manifold, reaching back into the fertile soil of your earliest experiences. Consider the profound insights of attachment theory, pioneered by John Bowlby. Your first bonds, those primal connections with caregivers, forge an internal working model, a blueprint for how you expect relationships to function, how you perceive your own worthiness of love and care. If these early attachments were fractured, insecure, or fraught with anxiety, you might find yourself unconsciously drawn to relationships that replicate these painful dynamics, forever seeking to resolve an ancient ache, to earn a love that felt conditional or absent. You aren't necessarily seeking pain, but the familiar landscape of that early emotional world feels, perversely, like home. Then there is the shadow of unprocessed trauma, a concept Freud first wrestled with, and which modern neuroscience, through figures like Bessel van der Kolk, has illuminated with chilling clarity. Trauma is not simply a bad memory. It is an injury to the psyche, a moment frozen in time that the brain and body fail to file away as past. It remains viscerally present, an uninvited guest that hijacks your nervous system, triggering fight or flight responses to benign stimuli, painting the present with the terrifying hues of a past horror. The body keeps the score, van der Kolk reminds us. The unspeakable terror, the overwhelming helplessness. These are not just memories. They are physiological states that can be reactivated, keeping you locked in a cycle of reliving and reacting, unable to fully inhabit the safety of the now. Is it any wonder that letting go feels impossible when the past physically reasserts its dominion over your senses? This reluctance to release the past is also fueled by more subtle cognitive mechanisms. Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance reveals our deep-seated need for internal consistency. When our actions or current realities clash with our past beliefs or investments of time, emotion, or effort, we experience a profound discomfort. To alleviate this, we might unconsciously rewrite history, double down on past choices, or cling to narratives that justify our suffering. I endured this, so it must have meaning, or I chose this path, so it must be the right one, despite the pain. It's often less painful to justify a familiar prison than to admit a mistake and face the daunting emptiness of an unknown freedom. Freud also spoke of the repetition compulsion, that uncanny and often destructive urge to unconsciously reenact painful past scenarios, as if by restaging the drama, we might finally achieve a different outcome, a mastery over the original wound. Yet more often than not, we simply find ourselves trapped in a tragic loop, confirming old, negative self-beliefs. Philosophically, this struggle with the past resonates with humanity's deepest existential questions.
Jean-Paul Sartre's chilling assertion that existence precedes essence throws us into a terrifying ocean of freedom. We are not predefined. We are condemned to be free, responsible for creating our own meaning, our own essence through our choices. Clinging to a fixed identity forged in the past, I am this way because of what happened to me, can be a form of what Sartre called bad faith, an attempt to escape the anxiety of this radical freedom, to shirk the responsibility of self-creation in the present moment.
The past becomes a convenient alibi for present inaction or unhappiness. Nietzsche, with his provocative concept of active forgetting, argued that a certain capacity to prune the past, to let go of its deadening weight, is essential for life, health, and growth. To be perpetually haunted by every past injury, every regret, is to be crippled, unable to affirm life in its vibrant, ever-changing present. He challenged us to live in such a way that we would be willing to repeat our lives eternally. An idea that forces a stark evaluation of whether the past we cling to is one we would truly choose to relive, or one we are simply condemned to repeat through lack of will or imagination. The Stoics, too, from Seneca to Marcus Aurelius, implored us to distinguish between what is in our control, our present thoughts, judgments, and actions, and what is not, the immutable past. To continually wrestle with the unchangeable is, for them, the very definition of self-inflicted suffering, a distraction from the only arena where true agency can be exercised, the here and now. Even society conspires to keep us tethered. Cultural narratives relentlessly measure us against standardized timelines of achievement, fostering regret for perceived missed opportunities. A burgeoning nostalgia industry paints bygone eras with a romantic sheen, making the actual messy past seem preferable to an uncertain future. And in our hyper-connected world, social media platforms transform our pasts into curated permanent exhibits, inviting constant comparison and the haunting awareness that old versions of ourselves are forever digitally embalmed. These psychological, philosophical, and societal forces converge, creating a powerful undertow that shapes your behavior, often in ways you don't even recognize. You might find yourself avoiding new experiences that unconsciously remind you of past failures, or self-sabotaging relationships because an old script dictates that you are unworthy of lasting happiness. Your emotional landscape might be perpetually overcast with a low-grade anxiety, a simmering resentment, or an inexplicable sadness, the emotional weather systems generated by these buried historical storms. Your very identity can become brittle, defined not by your potential but by your scars, a museum piece rather than a living, evolving work of art. But these roots, these hidden mechanisms of tethering, are themselves just the beginning of the story. Their tendrils intertwine and spread, creating a vast, subterranean network whose consequences reach far further and impact us far more profoundly than we often perceive. The true, unseen cost of this allegiance to yesterday is yet to be fully reckoned with, and it is in exploring these deeper ramifications that the urgency of our quest for freedom becomes undeniably, starkly clear. That subterranean network we spoke of, the one formed by the psychological and philosophical roots of our attachment to the past, extends its influence far beyond the confines of your inner world, silently, meticulously shaping the contours of your personal and even our collective reality. These are not loud, obvious repercussions. They are the subtle, pervasive currents beneath the surface of daily life, the invisible scaffolding upon which your experiences are built. The true cost of this unwavering allegiance to yesterday is tallied not in dramatic collapses, but in the slow erosion of vitality, the unnoticed narrowing of horizons, the quiet suffocation of potential. And it is precisely because these consequences are so deeply embedded, so often mistaken for just the way things are, that their power is so formidable. Consider the cognitive sleights of hand your mind employs, unwittingly fortifying the bastions of the past. You are likely ensnared by confirmation bias, that insidious tendency to seek out, interpret, and recall information that validates what you already believe. Beliefs often forged in the crucible of past experiences. If early betrayals have etched a narrative of mistrust into your psyche, you will unconsciously scan every new interaction for the faintest hint of deceit, magnifying ambiguous signals into proof of impending heartbreak, thereby ensuring the prophecy of your past fulfills itself anew. Your mind becomes a lawyer, selectively presenting evidence to a judge, also you, who has already leaned towards a verdict written long ago. Then there's the brain's inherent negativity bias, a survival mechanism that once protected our ancestors from predators, but now often keeps us chained to past pains. Negative experiences, moments of fear, loss, or failure, are neurologically encoded with far greater intensity and stickiness than positive ones. Your triumphs may feel fleeting, your joys ephemeral, while your regrets and traumas replay with vivid, agonizing persistence. The amygdala, your brain's ancient alarm system, diligently flags anything reminiscent of past threats, ensuring that the shadows of yesterday loom far larger and darker than any light the present might offer. Compounding this is hindsight bias, the "I knew it all along" phenomenon. After an unfortunate event, you look back, and the path to that outcome seems glaringly obvious, its inevitability etched in stone. This distorted lens makes past mistakes feel like character flaws rather than missteps on a complex journey, fostering a paralyzing sense of fatalism. If it was inevitable then, what's the point of trying to change things now? And anchoring every decision, every self-assessment, is often an unexamined anchoring bias, where your earliest experiences or self-definitions become the fixed point against which all subsequent life is measured, often unfairly constraining your growth. That first failure becomes the definition of your capability. That early critical comment becomes the unwavering truth of your worth. Neurologically, the past doesn't just haunt you, it physically wires you. Every time you ruminate on an old grievance, replay a scene of regret, or indulge a fear rooted in a past event, you strengthen specific neural pathways. As neuroscientist Donald Hebb famously stated, neurons that fire together, wire together. Your well-trodden paths of past-focused thought become deeply rutted superhighways in your brain, making alternative, present-focused or future-oriented thoughts feel like struggling through dense, uncharted undergrowth. Escaping the past isn't just a matter of willpower, it's a matter of literally rerouting the intricate circuitry of your mind. Moreover, when past traumas remain unresolved, the amygdala can become chronically overactive, effectively trapping you in a state of heightened alert. Your nervous system remains braced for a danger that is long past, leaching the color from your present moments, making true relaxation and joy feel like distant, unattainable shores. This chronic stress, this internal state of emergency fueled by ghosts, further impairs the functioning of your prefrontal cortex, the very part of your brain responsible for rational thought, emotional regulation, planning, and breaking free from habitual patterns. You are, in essence, trying to escape a labyrinth while the part of your brain that holds the map is compromised by the very stress the labyrinth induces. These internal mechanisms are amplified and reflected by broader cultural conditioning. Consider the subtle yet potent impact of generational trauma. where the unhealed wounds of our ancestors are passed down, not just through stories and learned behaviors, but potentially, as emerging research in epigenetics suggests, through alterations in gene expression that can influence stress responses and predispositions in descendants. Whole societies can remain caught in the undertow of historical grievances, reenacting old conflicts, burdened by resentments that predate their own lives. Cultural scripts about what constitutes a successful life, what defines redemption, or how one should react to loss or failure, often impose rigid narratives that leave little room for individual healing or deviation from a past-defined trajectory. We become actors in plays written generations ago, speaking lines that no longer serve our truth. The silent, unseen consequence of all this is a profound shaping of your personal reality. The past becomes a pervasive filter, determining not only how you interpret the world but what you even allow yourself to perceive. Opportunities for joy, connection, or growth that don't align with your ingrained, past-derived narrative may become literally invisible to you. Your emotional life can stagnate, forever cycling through the familiar weather patterns of old regrets, sorrows, or anxieties, rendering you unable to fully savor the unique climate of the present moment. You might find yourself endlessly replaying dysfunctional relationship dynamics, choosing partners who fit neatly into the empty slots left by figures from your past, or pushing away genuine intimacy because its unfamiliarity feels more threatening than the known pain of old wounds. The grandest, most tragic consequence, however, is the stifling of your potential, the vast expanse of futures you tacitly surrender. The you that could innovate, create, love fiercely, and live with unbridled passion is held captive, a silent hostage to the accumulated weight of who you once were or what was once done to you. This is the unseen trap, a world subtly constricted, a life lived in emotional echo chambers, a future perpetually mortgaged to the past. The urgency to escape this isn't born of a desire for mere comfort, but from a profound yearning for authentic existence. It's the realization that the prison is not just internal. Its shadows dictate the very texture of your external world. Its bars are woven into the fabric of your days. The cost is immeasurable, a life lived at a fraction of its potential capacity for joy, meaning, and contribution. Recognizing these deeply embedded mechanisms, these cognitive biases and neurological ruts, is a vital awakening. Yet knowledge alone rarely unlocks the cell door. A more radical shift, a rebellion against this deeply ingrained tyranny of the past, is what's demanded. And the seeds of that rebellion lie in daring to question the very nature of the chains themselves. The weight of that unseen trap, the chilling realization that your life might be subtly, yet powerfully dictated by the ghosts of yesterday, could indeed feel overwhelming. You've journeyed through the labyrinth of its psychological roots, its neurological entrenchments, its societal reinforcements, and witnessed the silent constriction of your personal reality. It's enough to make one feel resigned, a puppet whose strings are pulled by forces beyond conscious reach. But what if this very understanding, this painful awareness, is not the end of the story, but the explosive prelude to a profound rebellion? What if the chains you felt are not as immutable as they appear, and the key to unlocking them lies not in erasing the past, but in radically transforming your relationship to it? This is not a call for gentle evolution. It is a summons to an internal revolution, a courageous reclaiming of your sovereign right to author your present and future. The first radical shift in perspective is this: your past is not a monolith, but a story, and you, in the here and now, hold the editorial pen. The events themselves, the losses, the triumphs, the wounds, the joys, these are like raw, unedited footage. They happened, they are facts. But the narrative you weave from them, the meaning you assign, the emotional charge they carry into your present, that is where your power lies. You've been led to believe that the story writes itself, or that it was indelibly written by past selves. But what if those past selves were working with limited information, clouded judgment, or unhealed pain? The revolutionary act is to recognize that the past, as a living, breathing influence in your life, is malleable, not by altering the facts, but by reinterpreting their significance, by choosing which threads to highlight, which to diminish, and how they inform the protagonist you are becoming today. This leads to a second, deeply liberating realization, one echoed by thinkers like Viktor Frankl amidst the unimaginable horrors of the Holocaust. You are not your past. You are not the sum of your mistakes, nor are you solely defined by the traumas inflicted upon you. What happened to you is a part of your history, but it is not the core of your identity unless you cede that power to it. Frankl discovered that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This isn't about denying pain or pretending hardship didn't occur. It is about fiercely asserting that your response, your chosen meaning, your forward movement, defines you more profoundly than the circumstance itself. The past can be a teacher, a data point, even a scar that tells a story of survival. But it ceases to be your master the moment you decide it is not your essence. Nietzsche's call for active forgetting can be understood here not as a suppressive act of pushing memories into the dark, which often gives them more power, but as a conscious, strategic disengagement from the debilitating emotional charge of certain past experiences, a willful decision to stop watering the weeds of old grievances so that new growth can flourish. How, then, do you enact this rebellion? It begins with counterintuitive solutions and profound mindset shifts. You might start by embracing the Buddhist concept of impermanence, anicca. Everything changes. The past is gone, irretrievably. The future is an unwritten potential. Clinging to what was, whether a past joy you desperately want to recapture or a past sorrow you can't release, is like trying to grasp smoke. Radical acceptance of this flowing, transient nature of reality doesn't mean indifference. It means liberating yourself from the futile struggle against what is. Mindfulness becomes a crucial tool here, anchoring you in the only moment that truly exists, this present one, allowing the fierce winds of past regrets and future anxieties to blow through you without uprooting you. From this present moment anchor, you can engage in the powerful act of restorying or narrative reframing. You become the conscious author of your life story. Look at the tales you tell yourself about who you are, where you've come from, and what's possible for you. Are they tales of victimhood, limitation, and inevitable failure? Or can you, with compassion and courage, begin to rewrite them? This isn't about delusion. It's about finding the threads of resilience, the overlooked moments of strength, the lessons learned even in the deepest pain. Cognitive restructuring techniques from CBT can be invaluable, but framed here, it's an existential act of self-creation. Identify the old disempowering narratives. I always fail. I'm unlovable. Good things don't happen to me. And actively, consciously challenge them, replacing them with narratives that acknowledge the past, but emphasize your agency, your growth, your capacity to choose a different path forward. Consider forgiveness as an act of profound self-liberation. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood paths to freedom. Forgiving others or yourself is not about condoning harmful actions, forgetting that they happened, or even necessarily reconciling. It is, as Desmond Tutu, a master of navigating national trauma, taught, about cutting the energetic cords that bind you to the perpetrator or the past event. Resentment, bitterness, the endless replaying of injustices. These are poisons you drink, hoping someone else will suffer. Forgiveness is the antidote you administer to yourself, reclaiming the vast emotional and mental energy that was being consumed by the past, making it available for building your present and future. Simultaneously, you must learn strategic disengagement from ruminative thought. That mental hamster wheel, replaying old hurts, anxieties, and what-ifs, isn't productive problem-solving. It's a destructive habit that deepens the neural pathways of pain. Recognize it, name it, Then, consciously redirect your attention. This isn't suppression. It's a redirection of focus, like changing the channel from a horror film to a documentary about unexplored landscapes. And what if you could go beyond merely surviving past adversity to actually cultivating post-traumatic growth? Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun discovered that many people who experience significant trauma after navigating the initial devastation report positive psychological changes, a greater appreciation for life, improved relationships, increased personal strength, new possibilities, and spiritual development. This is not to romanticize trauma, but to acknowledge the human capacity to find meaning and strength, not just despite adversity, but because of it. History and literature offer us poignant beacons. Nelson Mandela emerged from 27 years of unjust imprisonment, not consumed by bitterness, but with a vision for a reconciled future for South Africa, demonstrating a monumental capacity for forgiveness and future focus. Jean Valjean, in Victor Hugo's Les Misérables, haunted by a minor theft, chooses again and again to forge a new identity based on virtue and compassion, refusing to be forever defined by the branding iron of his past. These are not mythical figures. They represent the human potential to consciously break from a past that sought to define them. Building this new way of thinking involves cultivating what is sometimes called the Afi, observer self. That part of your consciousness that can witness your thoughts and emotions about the past without becoming entangled in them, like watching clouds drift across the sky. This creates crucial psychological space. From this space, you can practice intentionality, consciously choosing actions, environments, relationships, and even internal dialogues that nourish the self you are choosing to become, rather than those that merely echo the familiar, often painful patterns of the past. This entire rebellion requires immense courage to embrace uncertainty. Letting go of the familiar, even if it's a familiar suffering, means stepping into the unknown. The past, for all its pain, can feel like a known quantity. The future, unwritten, is inherently uncertain. To choose freedom is to choose this uncertainty, to trust in your capacity to navigate whatever comes. This is the heart of the rebellion, the dawning realization that you are not merely a passive recipient of your history, but an active, powerful creator of your present reality. The revolutionary act is the reclaiming of your internal sovereignty, the understanding that the most profound freedom is not freedom from circumstance, but freedom in how you relate to it, how you alchemize it, how you choose to let it shape but not define you. And yet, even this courageous rebellion, this active resculpting of your inner world, is but a gateway. It prepares you for an even deeper, more ultimate truth about the nature of self and time, a final realization that can recontextualize all your struggles and illuminate the path forward with an almost blinding clarity. You have journeyed through the shadowy corridors of your internal archive, identified the psychological and philosophical roots of your tethering, witnessed the unseen consequences that shape your reality, and even embraced the fierce, empowering rebellion of restoring and reclaiming your narrative. You stand now, perhaps, with a newfound sense of agency, the pen of authorship grasped firmly in your hand, ready to script a future unbound by the dictates of yesterday. This is a profound liberation, a testament to your courage to confront and reshape your inner world. Yet what if even this powerful act of rebellion, this masterful re-editing of your personal epic, is but the clearing of a path towards a truth so fundamental, so radical, that it redefines not just your relationship with the past, but the very nature of who you perceive yourself to be, and the fabric of reality itself. The penultimate veil that often remains, even after such courageous inner work, is the subtle, deeply ingrained assumption of a fixed, continuous self that is the protagonist of this drama of letting go. This I that struggles, that remembers, that forgives, that strives to break free, we imagine it as an entity that journeys through time, accumulating experiences, being shaped by the past, and carrying that past like a cloak, sometimes heavy, sometimes tattered, but always its own. The rebellion then becomes about wresting this cloak off or mending it or choosing a new one. But what if the ultimate freedom lies not in managing the cloak, but in realizing something astonishing about the wearer, or rather, the act of wearing itself? The ultimate truth, the final and most powerful realization in the art of letting go, is this: all that truly exists, all that you ever truly experience, is the pristine, ever-present moment of now. The past, with its intricate dioramas of triumph and trauma you explored in that vast mental archive, does not exist anywhere except as thought forms, neural echoes, and memory traces arising in this present moment. The future, with its shimmering possibilities and potential anxieties, is equally a fabrication of thought, a projection cast forward from this same indivisible now. There is no other place, no other time where life occurs. Your consciousness, the very essence of your being, is not a time traveler dragging a suitcase of history. It is an ever-new point of awareness, eternally situated at the singularity of the present. From this profound vantage point, the very notion of self undergoes a seismic shift. The I you refer to is not a static noun, a psychological entity that was born, accumulates a past, and moves towards a future. Instead, your self is a dynamic verb, a continuous process of being, an unceasing arising of awareness and experience in each successive now. The you who experienced that childhood wound, that first love, that devastating failure, that specific constellation of consciousness, that momentary expression of being, is, in a very real sense, no longer here. It was a wave that rose and fell back into the ocean of potential. The you, reading these words right now, is a fresh emergence, a new wave. While patterns and memories may carry forward, providing a sense of continuity, the core experiencing entity is reborn, immaculate, in every instant. This understanding transfigures the entire concept of letting go. If the past exists only as a thought in the present, and the self is a continuous arising in the present, then freedom is not about the arduous task of letting go of something you inherently possess or are burdened by, but rather the effortless realization that you never truly had the past in the way you imagined. It doesn't cling to you. You, or rather the habit of thought, clings to it by repeatedly reactualizing it in your present awareness. When you deeply perceive that the past is not an appendage to be amputated, nor a ghost to be exorcised, but simply a collection of thoughts appearing now, the imperative to let go dissolves. There is nothing to drop because, in the deepest sense, you are not holding anything. You are simply witnessing thoughts. The struggle was never with the past itself, but with the persistent illusion that the present moment self is inextricably defined by and burdened by those presently arising thoughts about the past. This paradigm shift illuminates your past struggles with a new, almost startling clarity. The suffering you endured wasn't solely from the events themselves, but from the deeply felt, yet illusory conviction that you were fused to them, that your identity was irrevocably stained or shaped by them. The battle was often with a phantom, a construct of a past-defined self that you relentlessly and painfully kept alive in your present. Your identity, you now see, is not a historical artifact to be curated and defended, but a spontaneous, moment-to-moment creation. In every breath, you are free to choose who you are, unencumbered by any perceived debt to who you were or what stories you once told yourself. The fear of change, the terror of losing parts of your old identity, diminishes when you realize that the self is inherently a process of flow and transformation. Loss is not a threat to a static being, but simply a natural aspect of the dynamic unfolding of life itself. Imagine awakening from an incredibly vivid, protracted dream. Within the dream, you were a specific character, embroiled in complex plots, feeling intense emotions, believing wholeheartedly in the reality of your dream struggles and dream identity. Upon waking, there's that moment of disorientation, followed by a profound release. The dream character and its problems were real, within the dream. But you, the dreamer, are now awake, distinct from that narrative, yet holding its essence as an experience. The vast archive you once felt imprisoned by is revealed to be but one room, one gallery of stories, within an infinitely larger mansion of being, a mansion whose every door opens into the boundless expanse of the now. This is not a call to dismiss the richness of experience or the lessons learned, but an invitation to inhabit your life from a place of ultimate freedom, a place where the past is acknowledged as a series of moments that consciousness once illuminated, and the future as a field of pure potentiality awaiting its conscious illumination. The art of letting go culminates in this. The art of realizing there was never anything truly to hold on to, only the eternal, ever-present now to inhabit, to experience, to be. Your life, then, ceases to be a struggle against the currents of time and becomes a dance with its unfolding, a continuous act of self-discovery in the luminous, unburdened present. This is the ultimate homecoming, not to a perfected past or a guaranteed future, but to the vibrant, limitless sanctuary of your own immediate, ever-new awareness. And from this sanctuary, the view is, quite simply, infinite.